The WPMRR WordPress podcast is brought to you by WP Buffs. WP Buffs manages WordPress websites 24/7 and powers digital growth for agencies, freelancers, and WordPress professionals. Join our white label program, and by next week, you could be offering 24/7 white label website support to your clients and passively growing your monthly recurring revenue. Or become a WP Buffs affiliate to earn 10% monthly payouts every month for the lifetime of every client. And finally, if you're looking to sell your WordPress business or website, check out the WP Buffs acquisition unit. Learn more about all three at WPBuffs.com.
All right, we are live this week on the WPMRR WordPress podcast. We've got Brian Casel on the pod this week. Brian, we've known each other for a little while, man, but I don't know if folks in the WordPress space know. We were just talking offline. You used to be super into WordPress, and you said you've kind of slowly moved a little bit away from it. You've done a ton of stuff. You're very well known in kind of the productized service space and doing SaaS stuff now. I'm going to let you explain it because you can explain it better than I can. But why don't you tell folks a little bit about some of the stuff you're working on?
Yeah, Joe, thanks for having me on. It's funny, like I'm still like very connected to the WordPress community and a lot of people, and I use WordPress on some of my sites, but yeah, like I used to be much more in it about 5-10 years ago than I am now, and sometimes I feel like a little disconnected. Like I don't even know what the latest greatest stuff is, and the Gutenberg, all that. I'm a little bit lost, but anyway. Yeah, so I usually like to work backwards. So today I am primarily focused on building and running SaaS products. The main one is called ProcessKit, which is, it's for your processes. It's for running repeatable tasks and projects. It's really great for agencies and productized services. We especially focus on client onboarding. And it can also serve as like a client portal solution for bringing clients on board into a service and then running repeatable tasks with your team and automating a lot of that stuff too. So that's been the main thing that I've been really focused on for the last 2 years. But here in 2021, I'm actually right now as we record, like these couple of months, I'm sort of taking a slight break from working on that product, and I'm working on a few shiny object, other SaaS ideas right now, kind of smaller SaaS products, but I definitely still going to be pushing on ProcessKit this year, building out the client portal and things like that. So that's what I've been focusing on the last couple of years. In sort of in the background is I'm still running a company called Audience Ops, which is a productized service. We basically power the blog content for many different software companies. We actually work with quite a few WordPress plugin companies and theme companies, and as well as agencies. So we do content directly for companies, and we also power the content for agencies who resell. Like if you're a website agency and you're doing marketing services for your clients, you can like outsource to us to actually write all those articles. That's a big part of what we do. So I've been running that since 2015. I'm mostly removed from the day-to-day on that business. I've got a really great team. We onboard clients really well. We run the blog content. The team mostly handles that. Very, very little input from me. And that's what has kind of freed me up in these last few years to really dive into both learning to build SaaS products and actually building and running them. Before all that, so in 2015, I sold my previous bootstrapped business, which was called Restaurant Engine, which was entirely built on WordPress. That was sort of like a SaaS / productized service kind of thing. It was like a website builder, website service aimed at restaurants and hotels. And so I worked on that for about 4 years and learned a ton, both about WordPress as well as bootstrapping a business and recurring revenue, MRR, right, on WordPress. That was around 2011 into 2015. And then kind of the couple of years before that, I made a living as a freelance WordPress-based web designer, basically.
Yeah, nice, man. It's so funny.
That's like the last 12, that's like 12, 13 years in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's funny hearing people's long stories though, and coming back to how did they start? Well, I was, a WordPress freelancer, and I find it, it's nice to hear for people who are freelancing now, who maybe want to keep freelancing, but maybe they have bigger things they want to do. There's nothing wrong with starting with freelancing. You start with freelancing, and there's always other steps you can take. There's always other journeys you can go on. And yeah, hearing you starting as a freelancer, now you're, running software products. It's a cool journey,
Yeah, totally. It's been really fun. I like to talk about how, you look back on your own journey, or you hear about other people like on podcasts and things, and it seems like it's so planned out and everything is like so organized and strategic, and it's not that way at all in real life. I'm sure I'm not alone where it's like,
you're not alone.
Every new thing that I end up working on, it's like you just stumble into it. Like I didn't even know. The funny thing is, I remember back in, first of all, I didn't even know what freelancing was. I started as a web designer at an agency in New York.
Okay.
Like a front end web developer. That was my first like quote unquote real job after school. And I like all of a sudden, that was like a 9 to 5 at a desk in an agency. I noticed that they were hiring freelancers to come in like 2 days a week for like an afternoon here and there. And I was like, wait a minute, I have the same skills as those people do. Why do I have to sit here 9 to 5 and they get to go do other things for half their week? So that like, then all of a sudden I was like, oh, freelancing is a thing. So I explored that and then went freelance. And then I was freelance doing web design projects for clients for a while. And then I discovered companies like Woo Themes and Studio Press and Press 75, they were selling WordPress themes. And I was like, I know how to design WordPress themes. Why am I doing client work when I could be selling themes, And that was when the digital product bug kind of started. And that was a side hustle for a while. And that's when I sort of started to understand, like, how can I actually turn my services more into a product and productize services and all that.
Yeah, for sure. As someone who runs a company doing client work right now, and I know you from your work through Audience Ops. I think that's how I first heard about you. Both productized services company. I like services a lot. I like helping clients with work, but part of the back of my brain is always like, maybe the next step is going more into the software space or more into the pure product space from productized service, and kind of honestly doing maybe kind of what you did. You cut your teeth in services and productized services, and then use some of those skills to move into more pure software and product, which is cool. And actually hearing that your background, I don't know if I knew that you started off as a designer or like a web designer, as you'd call yourself, or design freelancer. I can tell from your website on ProcessKit that it is, it's designed very well. I don't know if that's all you. Did you put ProcessKit together, ProcessKit.com together all yourself? Did you have any support from like another designer or like a user experience person, or were you just like, boom, 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 I know how to do this?
Yeah. So basically, all the design stuff is my work. The parts that I tend to bring in help is more like the back end development. That's my weak side is the database development and building functionality. And I've learned to build stuff using Ruby on Rails and other things, and just only in recent years. But it's one of the things I sort of love about the web industry, building things online, is like the overlap and the mishmashing of all these different skills, right? So basically, I really started not so much actually as a designer, but just a front end web developer.
Gotcha.
It was like HTML and CSS was my thing. I was dealing with like IE6, dating myself here a little bit, but like making websites work in 2005 to work in like IE6 was my job at that agency. So I would take PSDs from the designers and turn them into websites, and I was doing that on pretty big national brand websites for this agency. So I learned a lot about just figure out how to build websites at a professional level. That was a huge learning experience. Yeah. And then like as a way to be able to build more functional stuff without being without having a background as a programmer or developer, WordPress was that path for me. Like, learning how WordPress works and being able to build plugins and built restaurant engine with the help of some contractors and stuff. But like, that was the first path. And then, fast forward to more recent years, for a while there, I was doing all the design and all the front end on my SaaS products, but I would outsource to developers to build the SaaS backend. And I tried that for a few years, and I actually struggled with it. I spent a lot of money, and products didn't really work out so well. And then in 2018, that's when I sort of like stopped, and I was like, I have a lot of time on my hands because I've removed myself from the day-to-day on audience ops. Let me reinvest like this entire year of 2018 to really learning how to build my own products that I could design the product. I could talk to customers and do a little bit of marketing, but instead of having to outsource to developers 100%, let me see if I could just learn how to build an app front to back. And I spent that year learning Ruby on Rails, learned more about JavaScript, and I did it. By the end of 2018, I started being actually able to build complete SaaS apps. And then in 2019, I built the first working version of ProcessKit, like all myself, but then I, starting to bring in more expert level backend developers to help me move faster on the product and clean up some of my really gross code back there. So,
yeah, was ProcessKit? It seems to me like ProcessKit was you were running audience ops, and maybe your systems could have been a little tighter, your onboarding could have been a little tighter, or your processes could have been a little tighter. And it seems like, from my point of view, that this was kind of like a scratch your own itch sort of, we need something. ProcessKit sounds like it would be really helpful for us. Oh, this is actually really helpful for everybody. Let's package it and actually create a product. We'll call it ProcessKit. Was it something you were actually building for yourself, or did it just kind of come from the pain points you had and you kind of knew, I know a lot of people have this pain point, so let me build something like this?
Yeah, so it's definitely built around a lot of the same pain points that we had as a company with our operations, for sure. I mean, we were duct taping all the different tools together, from Google Docs where our SOPs lived, and then standard operating procedures, and then tracking stuff in Trello and losing track of stuff. And it doesn't have quite the automation that we need for, like, if the client is on this plan, then we want to handle things this way. Or if the client is on that plan, then we want the tasks to change dynamically. We want to dynamically set due dates and send off the right reminders and things like that. Like, a lot of that was still handled manually with our team. And, it got by, and it sort of worked for the first few years. But as you start to scale a service business, as you definitely know, I mean, you need to have your operations really buttoned up if you're going to really grow your team. And there aren't, you could look at all the big project management tools out there, but the general problem with them is that if your agency or service is highly repeatable, which most of them are, if they start to grow, they become more and more standardized and repeatable. Those tools just aren't truly made for repeatability and running tasks off of templates and things like that. And so that's sort of where it went. It wasn't necessarily like we built the software first for our own internal use and then released it publicly. It was definitely built as a public SaaS product first, and I actually waited a while before I actually migrated audience ops onto it. I wanted to make sure it was ready for us to use. And so, but yeah, now we run our client onboarding through it. We even run our sales process through it and the delivery stuff. So, yeah. Yeah,
cool. How do you find that using your own product for yourself helps you to build it for other people? I ask because WP Buffs supports WordPress websites. We do 24/7 website management. I use WP Buffs for a few of my own sites. So I'm logging into support into my portal saying, hey, could you help me with this? Oh, I know who you are, but the person helping me. But hey, I'm actually using the tool.
I'm the same way with
to see how it goes.
Like, they treat me as a client.
Yeah, cool. But I'd be interested to hear, because I don't think everybody does that, and I do it very specifically because I want to continually understand what that support experience is like, and just to kind of keep my finger on the pulse on stuff. Have you felt that using it yourself internally as a team has helped you find points where you're like, this piece is kind of confusing, we got to adjust that, or this piece doesn't really make sense, so it has been pretty helpful?
Totally. I mean, I get feature requests from my own team that I wouldn't have really known about. It's actually kind of helpful because like I get feature requests and support requests from just other customers on ProcessKit.
Yeah.
But you start to realize like there's a lot of little really tiny things that are like a little bit of friction here, or it would just be a lot faster, easier if I could just get access to this link from over here instead of from over here. Like there's a lot of stuff like that like general customers won't really send a support ticket for. They just sort of like deal with it. Whereas if my own team is actually using ProcessKit, they know I'm the creator and founder of it. They could send me all those little things. And it's my own team who's like, oh, it's really frustrating when I have to copy and paste this from over here to over here. Like I could take that and like ship that into the product in a week. And now my team is happier and it benefited all the customers too. There are certainly a lot of requests that just don't make sense to add to ProcessKit because from a product standpoint. But there's a lot of little things that like, because I'm more of a manager, more the founder, like I'm not the one carrying out the daily repeatable tasks myself. So you start to realize there's a lot of user experience things that can be improved that I don't personally experience because I'm not the on the ground user. But working with my team, it's easier to see that.
Yeah, totally. And remind me when ProcessKit was officially like launched, like when it came live. And I asked because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the past year and like how COVID has affected different businesses. Your business is obviously pretty digital and catered towards digital businesses, but I'd be interested to hear kind of like what the last year has looked like for ProcessKit, given kind of the current economy, given, the current state we find ourselves in.
Yeah. So ProcessKit, I started really working on it January of 2019, and the very first customers came in around June of 2019. So, about a little more than half a year before COVID started. Then in 2020, ProcessKit was, and in many ways it still is today, still a very new product. It's much further along now. But in 2020, when COVID hit, we were only about 8 months into having users on ProcessKit.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit difficult to tell what the full year of 2020 really meant for ProcessKit because it wasn't even the first full year of users yet. But one thing that I found interesting, because we continued to add customers through COVID in 2020. But one of the interesting things was, because we work with a lot of agencies, a lot of client services, and all of a sudden they became a little bit slow or they had some space in their workload because of COVID. And they were like, this is a good opportunity for us to actually work on our processes and our operations and put the work into setting up ProcessKit. I heard that from a number of folks in 2020. So.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because I feel like in my mind when I hear about COVID's happening, maybe we lost a couple clients, we're scrambling, we got to get on our systems and operations. Like to me, I'm like, I wouldn't think that that's what they would kind of go after in terms of like low hanging fruit, but it sounds like my assumption was totally wrong there. And there are people out there, maybe they're actually already kind of running somewhat successful agencies that are maybe doing okay during COVID, maybe like digital agencies that are still, either continuing to gain more clients or, maybe they're what they sell is even more in demand now that they're saying, our a system working and focusing on systems is going to be a key way for us to cement some of this growth, or for us to like be able to, continue servicing our customers even better?
Yeah, I mean, also just a big challenge for ProcessKit in general has been onboarding new customers to ProcessKit, like getting them to it is a bunch of work to get set up on ProcessKit. You need to really design out your processes and systems. Yeah. You need to get your team on board, get your whole team to adopt it, right? And so, I mean, that's a challenge that's been there since the beginning. More recently, we have like a new onboarding experience with like ready-made templates for your agency and a whole builder process that makes it a lot easier and faster. But we didn't have that in 2020. And what happened was like, that's usually the big objection is like, if you're an agency and you have a lot of work going on, they knew that their operations weren't as optimal, but they couldn't really pull the trigger on signing up for ProcessKit because it's too much work and they have too many current active client projects to be able to do it. But then when COVID hit and they had these like little spaces in their calendar, all of a sudden they were like, oh, actually we can get around to improving our systems, which is something we've been meaning to do for a while, but now we finally have the space to do it. But yeah, I mean, with ProcessKit as a product, that's been a big challenge in general. And recently we added this like builder and template system that just made it a lot easier, a lot faster.
Yeah, cool. I can see that being a challenge. I think like if I'm looking at your pricing right now, it's at least right now as recording of this episode, it's $49 a month for 3 team members, and then about $19 a month or $20 a month for each additional team member. If I've got 10 team members, that's about $250 a month. Correct me if I'm wrong in my math here, but for me, if that helps my onboarding be successful, the pricing, $250 per month, is kind of a no-brainer. I'm like, yes, like shut up and take my money. Like, how can we do this? The hard part for me, which it sounds like you're experiencing too, is like, how do I get my team to dedicate the time to make sure that this transition happens well? We're on teamwork projects right now. Okay, well, we have good repeatable tasks there, but like they're not perfect. They're not even that good. Okay, ProcessKit may work better for us. Okay, well, I got to bring my, customers or client success lead in. I got to bring our COO in. I got to make sure our team knows about all this stuff. We have to take the time and resources to move. And that to me is more of a challenge, I think, than a financial. Like financially, I'd be like, yes, like where can I sign up? How are you targeting in terms of like your clients you're looking for ProcessKit? Is it more, you think, smaller teams, people who have like maybe 2 to 3 members in there? Or do you have any clients now who are kind of like, I don't know, more enterprise level? We've got like, 100 people in there?
Yeah. So, so for the example of like a company with 10 full users, that would actually be around $180 a month. Cool. But math. I do that all the time. I'm like, because we sort of have weird pricing where the base plan just covers your first 3 users, and then after that it's 19 per user. But we do have companies with like more than 20 people in there. But we actually found that you're right, like the sweet spot is not super small, like not 1 to 3 people. They're probably using like free tools or other project management tools. That they haven't felt the pain of trying to scale into a team. It's usually around like between 5 and 10, 5, 6, 7 people. You're starting to feel like, all right, if we're going to keep hiring like this, we need to really button up our systems. And then they grow into ProcessKit over time after that. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is more recently we've been focusing a lot more on client onboarding as like that's by far the most common use case for ProcessKit. So most agencies, the most important process that you have is like how you set up a brand new customer or client for success after they've signed up for your service. How do you onboard them super smooth and because ultimately that leads to a really long client lifetime if you get the first month really right. Right. And so we have like an onboarding template built in with a process all ready to go. And a lot of companies are sort of just using ProcessKit, at least at first, for that client onboarding piece. And then maybe after that, if they have fully like custom projects, maybe they roll them into some other system. But more often they start with the client onboarding piece with us, get that up and running just on your next new clients. And then like add in like, oh, you're running a podcast. We can run our podcast through ProcessKit. Or, oh, we do a lot of employee onboarding and employee hiring and training. Let's run that process through ProcessKit. They start to add on. But that's generally where it's going, especially, now that we have this like client portal system, and we also have like guest users. So they can like invite clients into tasks and watch them through the milestones and things like that.
Yeah. I think the employee onboarding was the next thing I was going to ask about, if that was a use case, because that's the other place we see we need a lot of help around systemizing just like repeatable process. Like everyone we hire like has to pretty much go through the same process. Maybe it depends if you're like a full-time person or you're working hourly, or if you're doing, a developer job versus a marketing job. Of course, there'll be things that change. And also you said the word dynamic earlier in this conversation, which I assume means there's some sort of, you can make adjustments based on the kind of person maybe who's onboarding. This is a marketer. I think we like this. When we add this list for the marketer, it's going to have these extra items, but for the developer, it's going to have these extra 3 items that are more engineering focused. So that's an interesting use case to me.
For sure. Definitely employee onboarding is a big one. I mean, that's a big one for us at Audience Ops too. So like new employees, there's really 2 sides to that. There's the hiring process of like dealing with candidates and interviews and narrowing down that. So we have a whole system and process for that. And then we have a separate one for new employee onboarding, getting them trained up. And that's probably different for each role. But yeah, you were talking about the dynamic stuff. That's where I love to really like geek out on this stuff. And that's also where ProcessKit is very different from your typical project management tools. So yeah, we've got like automation rules built in, like a lot of if this, then that kind of rules that you can build into your tasks. We also have like liquid tags. So you could have these custom attributes on each of your clients. If the client has this value in the plan that they purchased or whatever it may be, show or hide or change the order or fire off this automation, send off this. We also have like template emails now, so you can like send off a template email from a step in a process.
I saw a video. I don't know if you put it out on Twitter or something, or I saw it somewhere but that looked really cool.
Yeah, the other big one for us, it's almost like maintaining a separate product, is our Zapier integration. I mean, like almost all of our customers are heavy Zapier users, and they need their processes and stuff like hooked into their CRM or hooked into their Stripe purchasing flow or their calendar booking stuff. So we, since the beginning, we've been maintaining this really, it's like a big app, that just the Zapier app. It's like all the different things that you can do inside ProcessKit, you could fire in and out both ways with Zapier.
Yeah, we're big Zapier users, and it's a nice way to connect software. It's a really nice and easy way to make software talk to each other, but sometimes it still feels a little bit like it's still a little bit messy sometimes with like all the stuff talking to all the stuff. So it's obviously a very good solution, but I know for a fact that there are teams out there that are like, the Zapier integration to maintain and manage that is like kind of a beast in itself.
It's definitely a beast from a development standpoint. But I'll say this, like, I mean, I think that more SaaS need to, I wouldn't say like all SaaS need a Zapier integration, but I feel like a lot more SaaS products need to prioritize their Zapier integration, because Zapier itself has become so huge that like I've seen it like it's become like a must-have feature when a customer is evaluating a SaaS. If it doesn't have a Zapier integration, or it's a really poorly done one, like I know for me, I'm probably not going to use it, because I'll feel limited, and all my integrations run through Zapier. I just think it just opens the door to not only so many integrations, but it's like people start to prefer Zapier integrations over the direct integrations because it's just easier to manage them all in one place.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have 20 Zapier integrations running right now. I get an email every week or so. It's like, oh, you've had like 2,500 Zaps go in the past week or something. So I would personally, as a business owner, prefer to continue managing it there because it's just easier for me. It's in one place. I'd be interested to hear about how you've attracted new customers at ProcessKit. I'm always interested in kind of what lead acquisition looks like and just how you grow your customer base. I sometimes like to take little guesses at things, and I feel like I want to make a little guess, and then I want to let you tell me if I'm right or wrong. So the places I see growth for ProcessKit, one, you've been around the block, Brian. You're like one of those guys. I remember when I went to MicroConf and I was like, oh my God, it's Brian Casel. Like he's the guy behind Audience Ops. I'm sure you've heard this before, but that was you, it still is you. So you probably have like an email list and somewhat of a following of people around. I get your emails that are very helpful for when I'm working on stuff. I'm doing hiring for onboarding. Oh, I read Brian's email about that. So maybe some of those people who've been following you for a while, they want to try the new thing you're doing. So that may be one customer acquisition channel. Another may be actually through Zapier. You spend all this time and resources managing a Zapier integration, but to have integrations with all sorts of other stuff, maybe if you have an integration with like Calendly, well, Calendly clients may find you through that integration and say, oh, ProcessKit, let me try that. So that's actually kind of a marketing channel in itself. I don't know if that's helped you drive customers. Maybe you just have some more traditional marketing that you're doing. Maybe you're doing some content stuff, or you're doing some Google ads or some social ads, or, pick your poison when it comes to lead acquisition. But wanted to know if any of that was right, if they're all semi-right or if they're all wrong.
Yeah, semi-right. Good guesses here. Let's see. So, my audience, I've been sort of slowly building a bit of an audience over the last several years. I'm on a podcast. I've been talking, and most of my audience are agencies and productized service people. A lot of WordPress, a lot of web design people are in my audience, just sort of like naturally from the type of work that I've done. That's who I tend to connect with. So that having the audience thing has helped when the product is brand new. It definitely helps gain some very, very early momentum with very early users and customers that, like, if you don't have any audience at all, that's usually the hardest part. But if you do, it can help just get those very first users, or even just get feedback.
It's like your friends and family,
Yeah, it's just because feedback is the most important thing. Like, is there, like, just showing a potential thing to someone else, like, is there something here, or is this just all in my own head? Like, like the sooner that you can do that, the better. And if you have access to a group of people, and you already have that rapport, that definitely helps. But actually, long term, it's not as big of a factor as most people would assume. When you see folks who have a large audience, especially for SaaS products, it definitely helps, but it doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to grow the customer base. And in some cases, it can attract not ideal fit customers. Sometimes they just buy because they follow you, but they're not really experiencing the pain that the product really solves. Other cases, they're perfect fits because the product was sort of designed for agencies, and there are a lot of really good agencies in my audience. So that sort of is one chunk of the marketing comes from those sorts of channels. Content and SEO is the other one that we're pretty focused on now, and have been since last 5 or 6 months. That's starting to show some results and growing just organic traffic, people searching for it. Zapier, you mentioned, is interesting. Just having the Zapier app integration alone actually doesn't do a whole lot in terms of bringing in traffic or users. I've seen a couple of people trickle in because they search for like process in Zapier and we came up, but I did just recently last month I wrote a guest article for Zapier's blog. And that brought in a lot of people. So, they blast that email out to like their whole list of like a crazy number of people. So, actually right now this year, that's something that I want to do more of is get more guest appearances, usually guest articles or podcasts with relevant audiences that just align. And I mean, obviously Zapier, like I said, like all of our customers are already Zapier users. So that audience really resonated pretty well with us.
Yeah. That's I'd like to dig into that even a little more, I think, because I think people think about guest posting or posting a guest article on a blog. They think of it as maybe something that is beneficial for SEO. Maybe you get a few links back to your site. That's kind of more like 2005 SEO, I think, right? But there's enormous value in writing a super, super high quality guest post somewhere that is perfect for your ideal customer so that you're adding a ton of value to people, and it adds value everywhere. Like a guest post, quote unquote, does not have to be something spammy or negative. It's because it actually a lot of value in it. I think that's really cool. Zapier is obviously a huge blog. I mean, a huge company. I assume they have a huge blog and a lot of visibility and a lot of email addresses they can send this out to. How did you get hooked into being able to do that blog post? Did you kind of contact someone at Zapier? Did they know about you already because of your Zapier integration? Was someone maybe part of Zapier already in your audience? And then they were like, hey, you want to write a guest post? I'd love to know like how you got the intro there.
In this case, I did get pretty lucky. Somebody like a former employee of Zapier was in my audience, and then just he introduced me to the blog editor at Zapier. But Zapier, I can't broadcast this as if it's like a strategy that anybody can use. But there are many blogs out there, including Zapier, who actively seek guest contributors. I think they have a page on their site somewhere where you can submit a form and give a pitch. And my advice, no matter who you are doing outreach to, it doesn't matter how small or big the publication is, you have to come up with a pitch that will resonate with their audience. Don't worry so much about your own. First of all, choose the right publications based on some audience overlap there, but understand what types of content really serve that audience really well. And so I actually wrote an article all about the automations side of client onboarding, right? Because obviously Zapier audience, they care about hooking up pretty cool automations. So yeah, that's cool. We do some guest posting too, WP Buffs, across different kind of WordPress blogs, and we're very cognizant of writing articles in the right places for the right people with great topics for those specific audiences, but also like being super, super easy to work with from like the editor's point of view or whoever's actually publishing it. Like every blog post or every guest post we write, like one of the checklist items we have on our list is like, make sure we have a good number of links in the guest post out to other blog posts on their blog. Because they're going to want to do a little SEO. Okay, why don't we just do that when we write the blog post? Does everybody do that? Most people don't do that. I think that gives us a little leg up in terms of, wow, they already linked to that other blog post. Okay, cool. I don't even have to do that as the editor. Cool. I like these guys. Maybe I'll do another guest post with them. We'll like link out to their core products. Like we've done some, a couple guest posts or a few guest posts on like a torquemag.io, which is the WP Engine kind of publication. We always link out to WP Engine. When we talk about hosting, we just link out to WP Engine because they're obviously going to do that, right? Like they want to talk about their hosting. So we just do it for them. And to do that kind of work for them, maybe we also do a little bit of, we don't do this a ton, but we'll do like a little bit of SEO research to be like, oh, this topic, like when we're pitching a topic, oh, we think this topic would be good. Look, it gets this many searches. You haven't written about it before. Maybe that's the place you'd want to compete in. We do a lot of SEO too, so it's also got to be a thing. We don't
particularly want or need to compete in. So there's a lot of nuance there. But anyway, for guest posting, I think some of those strategies are also would be cool. Hey, if you're people using ProcessKit for guest posting, add that to your checklist item. Make sure you do some of those things.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, to be honest, I'm still trying to learn about marketing and just growing traffic and customers in general. I feel like it's a topic that I've been trying to learn for 10 plus years, and every year it just seems to be like there's so much more to learn, and you know, I'm always just interested to hear about the processes, and especially as I'm like delegating a lot of this work out to a team, you know, what kinds of like repeatable stuff can I reliably give to other people to do that I know will result in increased traffic. So I'm always interested to hear that kind of stuff. Yeah, agreed. Cool. Well, Brian, thanks again for being on, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's start wrapping up. Why don't you tell folks where they can find your stuff online? You do like so much stuff online. I know you focus on ProcessKit, but you know, I know you're on social. You do a podcast too. Let's run through the list of the stuff you're doing on, and talk about and mention the podcast for sure, because I'm a listener and I think other people would dig it too, or multiple podcasts. Yeah, cool. So, I mean, we've been talking about ProcessKit. That's obviously over at processkit.com. And on social media, I'm mostly really only active on Twitter, and I'm CastJam on Twitter. That's the best way to sort of, you know, reach me directly. The podcast that I do with my buddy Jordan Gal, that's called Bootstrapped Web, where he and I just sort of get on the mic. I won't say it's every week because we get a little bit lazy and busy and we can't publish every week. But
I have some weeks where I'm looking for a new episode and I'm like, damn, they didn't record one this week.
I know. Yeah, sorry, we got another gap week this week, but
don't worry about it.
So there's that one, and then the other one is Productized Podcast, which is more like an interview show. But again, I sort of go through seasons on that one. On Twitter is where I really talk mostly about what I'm currently working on. I've got a couple of new SaaS products for like remote teams, or really one that I'm working on right now for remote video sharing and stuff. That's rolling out pretty soon. But that's also where I share a lot of, I try to work in public a lot on Twitter. So, you know, sharing little videos of features that I'm currently designing in the user interface, or sharing other ideas. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I'm on your Twitter right now, and I see a recent tweet liking how its interface is coming along, and you have this nice little GIF you created.
That was this morning.
There you go. Just tweeted that this morning. So, you know, if people are looking for a Twitter follow, I'd suggest Brian, not just because, quote unquote, you should follow him on Twitter, but like he really does work in public, and you can see a lot of really cool examples. So if you're on Twitter, make sure you give him a follow. Excuse me. Last thing, Brian, I ask our guests to do here on the podcast is just to ask our listeners for a little iTunes review. So if you wouldn't mind asking the listeners here for a little iTunes review for us, I'd appreciate it.
Hey, iTunes, you got to go there and you got to give it 5 stars. 4-star reviews are unacceptable. WPMRR needs 5-star reviews, and yeah, you should go ahead and do that. I highly recommend it.
Yes, appreciate it. If you leave a review on iTunes, WPMRR.com/iTunes will redirect you right there. If you're on an Apple or a Mac device, you can leave a comment without you can leave a 5-star review or any review without a comment. That's cool. If you just want to leave a review, a star review. But if you had a comment, I can shoot a nice screenshot to Brian saying like, hey, look what someone learned on this episode. Thanks for that review. So that's nice. And also it helps us to know what episodes we should do more on. Someone took a couple minutes to go leave a review for this episode. I'm sorry, when you, listener, take a few minutes to leave a review for this episode, I'll know, hey, I should have Brian on again. Or hey, I should talk about we should go in more depth about some of the topics I talked about with Brian today. So that's really helpful for content creation for us, so we can give you stuff you want to listen to. If you are new to the show, this would be episode 130 something.
It's really good that you actually ask for comments back from listeners. That's something that always we don't do that much on our podcast. And I'm always like wondering, like, are people even listening to this? And then I'll be at a conference and I run into people and like they know everything about my life and I don't know anything about them. And it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, totally. I hear that. It's happened to me once or twice at a WordCamp before, where it's like, I don't even remember talking about that, but sure.
I guess I did.
You're telling me. It's news to me. If you are a new listener to the show, go ahead and check out some old episodes while you're going and binging on Netflix or ESPN Plus or Disney Plus. Those are all pretty good, but why don't you go binge something that'll help you move your business forward. We've got 130 plus old episodes in the bank. Use the search bar on WPMRR.com/podcast. Search for the topic you're interested in. We've probably got a few episodes about it. If you have questions for us at the show, feel free to shoot them to us at yo@WPMRR.com. I will get back to you eventually, I promise. Or you can just hit me up on Twitter at Joseph H. Howard. I like to talk about what's going on in the hashtag WordPress Twitterverse every once in a while. So hit me up there and maybe you'll get into the next episode. Cool. That's it for this week on the podcast. We will be in your podcast players again next Tuesday. Brian, thanks again for being on, man. It's been real.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. This was fun.
See you, everyone.